they have to be flexible, because you're as a startup, you have to be flexible. You have to react to certain things that are happening. A quarter is not that much of a time, but when you compare it to the overall company and how long we're trying to build something up, it's still quite a long time, and a lot of things can happen in a quarter.
Peak, the innovation talk from Ekipa. Peak is an in-depth eye-to-eye exchange in which we want to deliver knowledge and impulses for you to benefit from. We're talking to guests of our network about innovation, digital transformation, and the potential of the digital generation.
Working together for almost 4 years, for at least 5 days a week, it's always important to have some recaps after a couple of times. That's why we decided to make one more episode between Nico, my co-founder, and me for our Peak Innovation Talk. And in this talk, we took a look back at our first quarter of 2021. We took a look back on our highlights and also our lowlights. We talked about what key learnings we had and how we tried to implement OKRs in our strategic working together with our whole team. We took a look back also on organizing huge events such as the bootcamp and final event for our Deutschland 4.0 challenge. And it's been a real pleasure to take a recap together with my co-founder. I hope you also enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Welcome to another episode of Peak. Today with a special episode. Besides me is my co-founder Nico. We already recorded another episode a couple of months ago and did a little review on our past year, on the year 2020. And since the feedback was quite good and quite positive on this episode, on this past episode, we decided to make another one and to make it a series of episodes, of talks, where we talk about our key learnings as the co-founders of Ekipa, where we talk about things or also obstacles that we faced, challenges that we mastered, and things we just wanted to share with you, with our community. So, Nico, welcome to this episode of Peak.
Thank you again for a second time. Let's see if we make it a real series throughout the year.
Having a look at this year so far, we conducted or mastered our first quarter. Now it's beginning of May. We obviously faced some challenges, but also had some things that we learned and also some successes that we had in the past couple of months. And we would like to talk today about our first quarter, about the learnings, the topics, the projects that we had so far. Starting with one question, Nico. I think we can skip the peaky questions, but taking a look at the first 3 months of this year, what have been your highlights and maybe also your lowlights in this year of Ekipa?
So let's start with the lowlights, as I'm the pessimistic one from us. I would say it was a real challenge to set up processes to grow our team. So in the first probably 1 to 2 months, so January, February, we had a lot of application talks. We had a lot of efforts that we put in to grow our team and to find the right people for it. And I think we did. We find a lot of great talent that we add to our team. But we had a lot of troubles too. So it was more effort than I thought it would be. All the talks, all of the decision processes. Also, we have to face that too. A few, let's say, rejections after we made an offer. But I think that's also some important learnings for us, because we talked about it in December, that it will be a challenge for us to grow the team and also to get some new experienced people in the team. And we tried that and we failed in a few parts. But I think in the end it worked out. We do have a great new guys in the team, so welcome also from this side. We did it in a regular basis, but also in the talk now. But I think that it was quite hard, and we have to learn from it and adapt for our next phase where we want to grow again. So for the next step, because we have to do it more efficient, we have to make better decisions probably in the whole journey. And I think that was one lowlight combined with a highlight, because also we grew our team and we are now like 17 people. I think our goal for 2021 was to grow to 21 employers. And I think we're on a good way to reaching that. not only from the team perspective, but also from a sales perspective. We had a quite good sales quarter, also, especially when you take it in consideration that in the last year, so 2020, there was Corona pushing, but also we had no leads going into the year. And I think in this year, 2021, was the first time ever at ekipa that we started the year with a lot of leads, hot leads, I would say, that was in the closing terms of our sales journeys. And yeah, I think we also did a great job to close those deals. And now we have a good funnel of projects that right now we're starting. So we started, I think, 4 or 5 projects already, and there will be a couple more in the first half of this year. I think that's also a highlight. And probably also, right now we're sitting in our next office. So our second moving and our second office was a really highlight for me, because I think as we sit then in our new office for, I think, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, I started to realize that it was the next big step, because I thought, okay, the first moving, that's out of the university program where we first sit to our first office would be a huge step. And I think this one was even huger. Is it an English word? I don't know. But because the office is way more, I would say, professional, it's way bigger, and it's just another mindset we are working on right now. It feels like we are a real company, or even more real than before. And I think that's also one of my highlights for this quarter. What about you?
Yeah, well, I would agree to most of the points. I would maybe add one more point regarding the lowlights that you already mentioned a little, but maybe to focus a little more on that. One of my lowlights was that 2 of our key employees, I would say, decided to leave ekipa. Robin, on the one hand, I mean, he was one of our first employees. He started here 2019, I guess. Yeah, beginning of 2019. He was the winner, or one of the winning teams, one of our first challenges, and then we hired him. He grew to become one of our key project managers. He conducted projects with Merck, with the Deloitte Stiftung and D21, the Digital Future Challenge, and a couple of more projects. And then, he decided to look for another challenge, to look for another opportunity, to maybe also gain some insights and perspectives in bigger corporations and big corporates, which is completely reasonable from my point of view. But at the same time, I think it was quite hard for us, not just on a personal level, but also on a professional level, because he was something with a lot of experience, even though that in a professional life, 1.5 years don't seem to be a long-term work relationship. But at the same time, of course, he had the most experience from all of our project managers, as he was one of our first ones. And when he decided to leave, it obviously was something we had to handle, and also was quite new for us. And quite at the same time, a couple of weeks before, another employee of ours, Lisa, also decided to leave. And I think those 2 project managers who had a lot of experience working here and then running innovation challenges, which is not something, or where not everyone is familiar with when coming to ekipa, and also being able to take over a lot of responsibility when those 2 people left. I think it was quite hard for us to, not to handle this, but to do it in a short amount of time, because the experience that they had and the knowledge that they had in regards of handling clients, handling the community, defining channels and target groups for new challenges, developing challenge briefings, running workshops, running boot camps, organizing events, and so on and so on. The whole stuff that happens due to such a challenge was quite hard to replace in just days or weeks. Luckily, we had a couple of other project managers already working here, so it was, even though it was quite successful in the end. But I think this is one topic we could maybe dive deeper into a little bit, because it was something I personally thought a lot about in the first quarter, and it's a topic of knowledge management. Because, as I mentioned, I think it's quite hard to transfer knowledge from employees leaving the company to employees joining, or employees going into the same role or same position that an employee who's leaving the company had before. How do you see this topic? To maybe stick there a little and talk about knowledge management. How do you see, or how would you describe our handling of it, and what were your key learnings regarding knowledge management, and how would you do it the next time when something like that happens?
That's a big question. I would start with another highlight before I start in there, because it depends on this too. That was our Deutschland 4.0 project. I think it was by far the biggest project we conducted. And when we put the knowledge management away from single employees or single project managers to the level of the company, I think Deutschland 4.0 is a pretty good example where we have to do better in the future in terms of the knowledge management and in terms of getting best practices, getting standardized processes, and get more efficiency, because it was the first project with 12 partners, coaching partners, politics. It was really huge, and we did a few things for the first time again, as we did before
Like
with the normal challenges. And I think learning from the normal challenges, and then also what you talked about with Robin, that we lose knowledge that is depending on single employees, and we have to do something different this time. We have to, from the beginning, think about, okay, how can we transfer the knowledge that we gained through Deutschland 4.0 to our next project, to make it more efficient, and to also, from a company perspective, get more out of our projects. Because we are project driven, our business model mainly project driven, and to scale a project driven business model, I think we have to put more focus on doing better in terms of processes, knowledge management, and stuff like that. A second learning that goes hand in hand, I think we identified this problem, I would say, back in 2020. We decided that we want to build an in-house consulting team and an in-house consulting department. That sounds way too early probably, because we're not that big. We're not Merck or something. They're using this. But as I said, I think for a project-driven company and business model, one of the most important things is to run projects and processes that you do more often than one time, to run it better in the second time and the third time, and to make it more efficient all the way. And therefore we created the in-house consulting team, because also when you're project-driven, the operational tasks are overwhelming the most of the times. I think we knew it. Also our team is experiencing it, and therefore we wanted to create a new department that can focus on that kind of work, to not be too much in the operational part, but also have the broader view, and to analyze and optimize projects and processes. But again, when we talk about lowlights, it's probably one for me too, personally maybe, because the in-house consulting department was like my idea, I would say, or I wanted to start at it, and it's my responsibility. And I think it didn't work out that well or that good as I expected. That's not because of the people that's doing it or because of anything like this, but it's more about the, I would say, framework conditions, because we don't have the capacities to have people that only work in that department. But we're trying to, next to the operational tasks, we try to build up roles that are hybrid, and it didn't work out that good in the first quarter, to be honest. I think we have to do way better there, and we have also to grow and to build up capacities for that specific department. So that also terms things like the knowledge management you were talking about gets more professional, gets more sustainable in terms of like long-lasting impact that we can make. Because I think we proved that making things for the first time, we are pretty good at it. I think we build it the startup, we build it new projects. We always have like nice ideas, good ideas to maybe do things for the first time, to build up new project setups, to build up maybe also new business models. I think we have a few ideas, but now we have to make the next step, I would say, and also prove that we can optimize processes and projects that are there to scale it, because I think that's our goal for this year. We said we want to build up a long-lasting and sustainable million revenue company. And to get there, I think we also have to prove that we can optimize given things.
Absolutely. You already mentioned another topic that I would like to talk about with you, Deutschland 4.0, or by far biggest project ever. I still remember our first talks and our first conversations together with Dorothee Bär, with her, who is the Federal Minister of Germany for Digitization, in January last year, talking about joint projects, talking about running digitization projects for the good of Germany and for Germany's society, addressing societal challenges in Germany. And then it took some time to really make it more specific and to really think about and plan running such a project. And then we started planning the project in August 2020, and it started November. I think it was the 11th of November last year when we launched the project on our platform, or 9th or 11th of November. I completely underestimated the impact and the size of the project. Even when we started it, even when we knew how many partners we have on board. What was your perspective on that? When did you realize, okay, this could become pretty big for us?
I would say from the beginning, because we never had a project like this with that many partners. I mean, I'm more into the project implementation that you are, as I'm more responsible for that part in our company. And I knew back then that with 12 challenges in one project, that this will be pretty huge, tough for us too. And because I think I was talking about with someone else a few days ago, before this huge project, we had like 15 challenges, and that was 12 on top. So we nearly doubled.
You mean 15 challenges in total since founding Ekipa?
Yeah. So in total, we had 15 challenges from the beginning. So from 2018 to 2020. And then we had 12 more. Like, I think that I think that already showed how big it will be, also in terms of the effort we have to put in. For me, at least. Yeah. So
I realized it I would say in January. So coming to the end of the qualification phase, facing the deadline of teams who need to submit their solutions. I mean, luckily in the end we made it. We made it successfully that at least 2 or 3 teams per challenge submitted their solutions, and each of the companies had to decide and evaluate which teams make it to the next phase, to the bootcamp, and then to the elaboration phase. And this was something when I was more responsible for planning the event, the bootcamp. And I think, or from my personal view, it almost felt like we transform ourselves to a digital event agency, having to organize an event which we never did before in this size, for so many stakeholders, for the companies, for coaches from Lufthansa, for the barcamp session hosts, for the whole teams, briefing them, preparing the sessions, having a keynote there and all that stuff. How did you estimate that? How did you see the whole event part? Bootcamp on the one side, and then a little later, the final event at the beginning of April.
A lot of effort needed to put in. But I think it pretty much shows where our responsibilities are for our company, because in the event part is less my role than it's yours. So when it's going to be external and all the work with external stakeholders, and I think that's one of the most important parts for events, because you have a lot of stakeholders there, obviously. That's more of your responsibility and your role. But still, I think it was the biggest project we ever did, and also the biggest events we ever did, digitally, for sure, because of Corona. And it was a lot of effort we needed. I think the whole team was involved in the events, starting in the boot camp. It was, again, a lot of new stuff we had to think about and we had to do, and I think we did pretty well on that. Same pattern as I talked about like 2 minutes ago. So now, to get back to the knowledge management part, we have to use a lot of those things we did there for our next projects to make it more efficient and to scale maybe our business model and our company.
My biggest key learning regarding the events was that every stakeholder involved, internally with our whole team being involved in the event, but also every external stakeholder being involved in the event, has a completely different view and perspective, obviously, and also role on the event, but also completely different needs. And you need to address those individual needs. And I found this quite hard because when we organized events in the past, we didn't have those many stakeholders. I mean, we maybe had many people in events, but not those different kind of stakeholders like coaches, speakers, and so on. And I found it quite hard to really prepare each person, each role, each stakeholder regarding or based on his needs, his or her needs for the event. And I still remember in the bootcamp how many briefings we developed beforehand, how many briefing slides we created for explaining every little detail for every stakeholder, for the barcamp session host. Okay, this is your stage. You need to go there in this virtual event tool called AirMeet that we used. This is your stage host, because we had stage hosts from Ekipa who also supported the barcamp session coaches on their stage and were like moderators on their stage. And he will support you by guiding you through the whole stage, through the whole session, and so on, preparing all those 24 teams attending the event, preparing all the companies having their own exhibition kind of at the event and being represented there as a company, and also willing or having the need for representing themselves on the event as one of the challenge providers and challenge partners of Deutschland 4.0. This was my biggest key learning ever regarding organizing events, that you need to address every different stakeholder's needs. And this is something I personally, as I mentioned before, found quite hard. I think we learned a lot regarding this point. I think that you need to think about every possible scenario that could come up in those events, because I mean, even though we prepared those briefings, a lot of stakeholders still had questions actually being answered in those written down briefings, but still maybe they didn't have enough time, or they didn't really pay enough attention to the briefings. But I think the mix between written down briefings, briefing calls, and then individual calls, again, with some of the people still having questions and not really understanding how the whole event works, was our best practices that we learned from the event preparation. And luckily, in the end, the event was quite successful. We had a great moderator, Lydia, who led us and guided us through the event, not just the bootcamp, but also the final event. And luckily and happily, we can today sit here and say, okay, we had 2 quite successful events, but still it was quite an effort running those and organizing those events.
That's true, but I think to put it in a bigger perspective, I think these events are really important for our innovation projects we're conducting, because for sure everything is going digital and you can like upload your solutions. You can find teams just via chat or talk and then upload your solution, and you don't have the direct contact to companies. And I think there are projects and challenges where this works out pretty good. But also there are challenges like our Deutschland 4.0 project, where we wanted to have like a long-lasting impact, where corporations and collaborations should come up in the end of the project between the finalists and between the use case givers, the corporates. I think therefore the events are really, really important and necessary to build up an innovation system and collaboration ecosystem, where those 2 parts, and you said they have totally different needs. That's true for events. I also think it's true for the whole collaboration and the whole innovation efforts they're both trying to put in. And therefore, I think the events are really, really important to, like, that they just get to know each other, get to see, okay, that are the goals from the company, that are the goals and the aims that the teams have, and to try to align them. I think the events are really important. And get back to knowledge management. That's for me a learning that we have to do better on the event basis, make it more efficient for us as a company, but also make them even better in the long term for our projects and to get really successful innovations that are long lasting after the challenges.
Absolutely. One more topic I would like to discuss with you. OKRs. Back in 2020, we decided that we would like to test and try OKRs as a pattern or as a method for setting goals and giving the whole team, the whole company kind of an orientation for what we are aiming for and what we are trying to achieve and how we can also structure our everyday work at Ekipa. Obviously, when you introduce something new you didn't have any experience with before, you make mistakes, and I think we also made a couple of mistakes with introducing those OKRs, but at least we try to, and we still try to introduce them to Ekipa, and we try to work towards OKRs. We set ourselves new OKRs or new part key results every quarter, and to our community who doesn't know the method of OKRs, it's quite simple. So for every department and also for the overall company, you set objectives which are not measurable, but which should inspire the whole company and the whole team and each department to work towards to. And each objective has 2 to 6 key results, which are measurable and which are, achievable. And when you achieve the key results, you automatically also achieve an objective. So for example, to make it easy as an explanation, you set yourselves an objective to grow as a company, which is not measurable, but if you say, okay, I want to grow, then you could set a key result, for example, okay, I want to double your revenue, which is measurable, and if you achieve this key result, you also achieve your objective that you grow as a company. Coming back to our OKRs, we set them the first time at the end of 2020 for the beginning of 2021 as an overall year OKRs for the company itself and also for each department, derivated from the overall OKRs. And then we also set OKRs for every quarter. Having a review on the first quarter OKRs, how we set them, how to try to measure them, and also how we reviewed them in our quarter meeting with the whole team. What were, from your point of view, our biggest obstacles, our biggest challenges, and also our biggest learnings from that quarter?
So the first overall learning would be, I think it's really important to set goals, because when I compare to last year, no matter how good or how not good it worked with the OKRs, it is way better than don't have measurable goals and goals you're working towards. So I would say, in overall, it's a positive analysis from my side for the OKRs, because I think they give guidance, even though they are not perfectly set, maybe. And I think we still had a few obstacles also and a few things that didn't went good. Maybe our communication to our team. I think we as the management or the manager for those OKRs did not have the overall view on it from the beginning. So we thought, okay, let's set them, and then in the quarterly meeting that we are conducting, where we will review them with the whole team, and that's basically it. And then just in front of the first quarterly meeting, like 2 weeks before or something, we sat there and said, okay, so what happened to the OKRs we set starting this year? And I think that was the point where we too realized, okay, we should have done more in terms of the OKRs management, I would say. Just to communicate more about them, to make it maybe visible also in the office, to make it more part of your daily work also, not only setting them and then go to your operational work and to your daily work and then review them, and that's it. So that's the one part. The second part is when I look at a few OKRs we set back in December or January, for a startup, or at least for us and for me, I think it's really hard to get the right, how to say, the right dimension of the OKRs, because they have to be flexible, because you as a startup, you have to be flexible. You have to react to certain things that are happening a quarter is not that much of a time, but when you compare it to the overall company and how long we're trying to build something up, it's still quite a long time, and a lot of things can happen in a quarter. And I think for a few OKRs or objectives and key results, I learned that it's not easy to plan them for 1 year, because as you said, we set them for 1 year for 2021, and then we want to derivate it for each quarter. But as I learned, I think set them for 1 year and then don't add or delete some KRs and some objectives. It's maybe not the right way, but we decided to do it for this year, and I think we should try to follow our first strategic decision in terms of the OKR setting. What do you think?
Yeah, I think the guidance is the most important thing. This is my key learning as well, and you already mentioned that. I think when we started to set them, we had a focus on them clearly, because we really focused on setting them and thinking about which OKRs are right for us and how can we set them and which dimensions do we have to take a look at. We already did this in our offsite with the team last year, and what we failed then was to have the guidance through the quarter, through the first quarter of this year, because we, as you mentioned, we set them, and then we sat down 1 or 2 weeks before the end of the quarter and said, okay, well, what about the OKRs? We need to track them, and we need to measure them, and we need to review them in our quarter meeting at the end of the first quarter. And then we realized, okay, we didn't actually have any focus on achieving them. I mean, there were some key results. To be honest with you, I completely forgot that we set them for the first quarter. And I think, and we also learned from this. Now we have our regular meetings where we track them during the quarter, and we also track the team's effort on achieving them. And I think this is really important, not just for ourselves, but also for the whole team, to have someone asking and reminding the team and everyone involved in achieving those OKRs. Not because everyone is forgetting to achieve those OKRs, but we all know how much daily work happens to be here in our everyday working life. And of course, if you focus too much on your daily to-dos and tasks, you sometimes forget the bigger picture. And I think OKRs are also part of this bigger picture of the overall strategy of Ekipa and of every department. And I think this is my key learning for this. Having more guidance, having more management of the OKRs throughout the whole quarter, and then having a clearer focus on it also at the end of each quarter.
Could be, but for me, I'm not convinced completely that the whole effort is really in terms of the capacity we have in our company is kind of worth it, or if one should say, okay, I'll set them more in the longer term, maybe for 1 year, and then see in the end of the year what happens, to have to see what we achieved. So that would give you more flexibility, because you have like higher OKRs. You're not going too much into detail, and just see how the overall company develops. Still could give you and the whole team and the whole company enough guidance for a year, but you wouldn't have to do too much management, because it is a lot of work. And we'll see that in this quarter, that managing the OKRs and having regular meetings, try to follow up on all of them, because I don't know if we counted them one time. I don't think so, but I would guess it's about, I don't know, 80, 100?
Key results? Yeah, definitely.
So that's a lot. And to manage them, to control them, to guide them, I'm not 100% convinced that that's the right way for a company like we are. But as I said, I think we should try, because one of our key learnings from last year was that we didn't set goals clearly enough. So this year I think we try to react to it and set clear goals. And I think after this year we have to think about, okay, what can we do even better, also with the OKRs management, because as I said, I think it's positive, and I think it's way better than last year. I'm right now don't know what's the best way to deal with it in terms for us.
Coming to the end of our talk, I think we do not necessarily have to go through the typical peaky questions at the end, but I do have three questions I would like to ask you. Question 1, what is your personal goal for the next quarter?
That's a tough question.
And by goal, I do not mean the OKRs.
No, I use that personal. So I think for me personally, it's still, as a founder, a lot, to be honest, about stress management. I know that I have a few problems with it. I'm working long hours, and it's also, I think, for us, a lot of responsibility that we try to carry with all decisions we have to make. And for me, one of my main goals is, to find a better way to deal with stress and to deal with decisions that have to be made and stuff like that. Let's see. I started to do coaching on that. I think it worked out pretty cool. The first coaching sessions I had. I'm learning a lot about it, and I want to build up on that and optimize my stress management.
Cool. Next one. What task or topic are you looking forward to the most, which is in your responsibility regarding the next quarter? The second question, from your personal responsibilities here at Ekipa, what is the task or the topic that you're looking forward to the most in the upcoming quarter?
I think it's not only for the quarter, but for my whole work at Ekipa, it's a combination of two things. One we talked about, that's the optimization of processes to make everything more efficient, to grow and to be able to scale our given business model that we have. I think I need to put a focus on that in the next quarter, and in combination with strategic topics we're working on. As I said, I think we're good at doing things for the first time, and we also have a lot of fun doing it. And I think we enjoy building up new things and new business models, new ways of how conducting sales projects, maybe also new revenue streams. And I think we have a lot of work to do also in this field for our mid to long term growing and scaling part. So the combination of both things is probably what I'm looking for.
And the third and last questions, derivated from your experiences and learnings from the first quarter of 2021, what advice would you give yourself from 4 months ago?
To be honest, I don't know. Nothing, probably. We had a few issues. There were again a few things that we experienced for the first time. So I did not know back then that they will come. I know now, but I can't tell them what I know now, because there wouldn't be a good answer for it. So basically, I don't have any advice. Maybe if you ask me in the end of the year, I have a few. But that will be my answer. All right. So let's see. I will ask you the next time again, and maybe then you will have an advice for your younger self. Thanks for joining the Peak Talk again. It was really a pleasure again to talk with you about the last couple of months. Having a joint review on what we achieved and what we did and what we learned from the first quarter in 2021. I hope we will make it a series, talk about our learnings and our successes in, or maybe after the next quarter. I would look forward to, and wish you an enjoyable evening and Wie kriege ich jetzt das Ende? I would love to make it a series and look forward to it. Thank you. Same for me. Let's see what we will talk about in 3 to 4 months.
Do you want to know more about the talk or the topic? On ekipa.de/peak, you can find every information about our episodes, guests, and topics. We will also keep you updated on our social media profiles. The link you can find in the description box. See you next time at Peak, the innovation talk by Ekipa.